people have high live expectations of your t-shirts. We won't keep them anymore. Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to my call center vibe. Yes, I'm loving it. Welcome to this very special event to celebrate the publication day of TJ Klune's Under the Whispering Door here in the UK. We are all very excited to have it out and to have it in hands of people because it is a truly amazing book and everyone's been loving it so far. Just so everyone knows what we're going to do, we're going to have a little chat. TJ's going to do a little reading, and then we're going to hand it over to you for questions and answers. There is a Ask a Question box at the bottom of your screens, so please make sure you're popping all of your questions in there because you guys have been chatting for ages and the chat just gets flooded with amazing questions and comments, and it's all going to be helpful if we just put it all in the question box. And a special thanks to our partners in this event, the Broken Binding, who are an amazing indie store, a bookstore specializing in science fiction and fantasy. They have lots of amazing signed copies and special editions, including of TJ's book. So if you haven't already got a copy, please go and buy one. But without further ado, I give you TJ Klune.
Hello, how are you? I just wanted to show you Vanessa Kelly's art too, by the way, just so I can, while we're here, of this
beautiful.
book. So much. It is beautiful. Hello, and welcome to this.
Welcome to your celebration. This is all for you.
Hooray!
Happy publication day. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very good. It's weird because the book has been out in the US for like a month now, and so now the rest of the world gets to see what all the fuss is about, I suppose, and I'm very, very excited about that.
Amazing. And then there is a lot of fuss because it is a truly beautiful book. I think we're going to start with a little reading so everyone can get a little flavor.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. So this is a very non-spoilery reading. It's going to be very short because I want everybody to be able to find out the secrets of this book on its own. And if you are so inclined, Kurt Graves is the narrator of this audiobook. And obviously, he is very much better than I could ever be at reading, especially my own book. So just keep in mind that if you want the audio experience, Kurt Graves knocks it out of the park, and it's been a joy to be able to bring him on. So I am going to be starting with the end of chapter 2 and going on to chapter 3. This is where Wallace is first taken from his funeral. By the Reaper who calls herself May. He is taken someplace far away that he's never been before. And this is what happens. May said, "This is probably going to feel a little odd, but it's a longer distance, so it's to be expected. It'll be over before you know it." But before he could react, she snapped again and everything exploded. Wallace was screaming when they landed on a paved road in the middle of a forest. The air was cold, but even as he continued to yell, no breath cloud formed in front of him. It didn't make sense. How could he be cold when he was dead? Was he actually breathing? Or no focus. Focus on the here. Focus on the now, one thing at a time. "Are you done?" May asked him. He realized he was still screaming. He snapped his mouth closed, pain bright as he bit into his tongue, which of course set him off again because how the hell could he feel pain? "No," he muttered, backing away from May, thoughts jumbled in an infinite knot. "You can't just..." And then he was hit by a car. Wait. He should have been hit by a car. The car approached, the headlights bright. He managed to bring up his hands in time to block his face, only to have the car go through him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the driver's face pass inches from his own. He didn't feel any of it. The car continued down the road, the taillights flashing once before it rounded a corner and disappeared completely. He was frozen, hands extended in front of him, one leg raised, thigh pressed against his stomach. May laughed loudly. "Oh man, you should see the look on your face. Oh my God, it's awesome." He gradually lowered his leg, half convinced he'd fall right through the ground. He didn't. It was solid beneath his feet. He couldn't stop shaking. "How? What? Why? What?" She wiped her eyes, still chuckling. "My bad. I should have warned you that could happen." She shook her head. "It's all good though, right? I mean, how great is it that you can't be hit by cars anymore?" "That's what you took away from this?" he asked incredulously. "It's a pretty big thing if you think about it." "I don't want to think about it," he snapped. "I don't want to think about any of this." Inexplicably, she said, "If wishes were fishes, we'd all swim in riches." He stared after her. She started down the road. "That doesn't explain anything." "Only because you're being obstinate. Lighten up, man." Short, sweet, and
I
simple.
loved it. I loved reading that scene because the whole first part of this book is kind of, it's morose in a way, but funny yet quick and witty, almost like a kind of like a sitcom.
Right.
And I think that's true about a lot of your writing stuff, because you have these characters who don't necessarily want to like, especially Wallace in the beginning, who's a terrible person, but somehow you find the ways to kind of like crack them open and like lay it all out, which has been amazing. And so what I loved about this book, one of the things was how the afterlife is effectively a business or a function. It's not just it's a journey, but like it has a kind of business function, but like a family function. How did, and there's been a lot of this stuff, like you talk about like The Good Place is like inspirational for that sort of style, and like other such shows and films. How did you want to create your own version of the afterlife?
Well, initially, way back in the day, when I first had an idea for doing something about the afterlife, it stemmed from a very specific scene in an old movie. And if people don't know this movie, A, we probably shouldn't talk to each other anymore, and B, you should go watch it immediately. But that is Beetlejuice, starring Michael Keaton, and that came out in 80 something. And there's a scene in Beetlejuice when Alex Baldwin and Gina Davis are dead, and they go down to this bureaucratic nonsense that is some form of limbo. There's a waiting room, and they have to speak to a social worker of sorts. And that scene has always stuck with me, and I wanted to do something with the bureaucracy of the afterlife, because it felt like there would be this whole world that just seemed to be, that would be run by underpaid drones and middle managers. And I just had this whole thing going. I hadn't written anything down. I hadn't plotted out anything. I just had this nebulous idea. And then, as sometimes happens, somebody came along and did that better, which was The Good Place, as you mentioned. And they did it much better than I could have ever hoped to achieve. So when that happens, you just kind of set stuff on the back burner and just kind of think about what you want to do with it, if anything. So it wasn't until I read Dickens' A Christmas Carol that I came back to this idea. And as people who've probably read Dickens, because you're that type of person, guys, it's about Ebenezer Scrooge, who is a jerk who is visited by three spirits, and at the very end, all of a sudden he's the best person in the world and everything is wonderful and magical. And of course, it's a classic for a reason, and Dickens is considered a master for a reason. But what bugged me about that story is that you never saw the work Scrooge put into becoming a better person. It was all of a sudden he was a dick, and then the next second afterwards, at the end, he was, everything is wonderful again, and I will help anybody. And it bugged me that we never saw the work into going into a better person, what it would take. And then I started thinking about what would happen if a man like Scrooge died and then was able to shine a light on all the fallacies of his life without having the power to do anything to change it. And that stuck with me. So instead of focusing on the afterlife itself, I wanted to focus on the in-between time, after death and before what comes next. And the reason for that is because I don't know what comes next. No one does. Yeah. And if I'm going to be writing a book about what comes next, I think that most likely it would end up being A, either too close to The Good Place, or B, it would not be as all-encompassing as I would want it to be. Because when you take in the ideas of the afterlife, you have to take in people's beliefs, you have to take in people's religion, you have to take in what they were taught growing up. And so that can become a very thorny issue. So I kind of sidestep that a little bit by just focusing on the in-between time and showing that there is a door for anyone who is there to go through it. Anyone who is ready to go through it. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter the type of person you are. It doesn't matter your religious beliefs or even just your internal beliefs. It is there and waiting for you. And that felt not safer, but it felt more of the right thing to do than potentially taking away somebody or knocking against somebody's beliefs. I have no problem with that because, fiction is meant to make you think. But here, I wanted this book to be for anyone who was ready to read it and wanted to read it. So I didn't want to alienate somebody by mocking a certain line of faith.
You often say you don't have all the answers, but you're kind of leading people on their own journey for their own interpretations of it, which I think is really beautiful. You also call it a comedy about grief, which I think aptly describes both the book In the Good Place and the vibes you're trying to do. Everyone is loving Beetlejuice, apparently, apart from me. The first time I saw the film, I did not enjoy it. I'm just going to say it outright.
Wait, say that again?
The first time I watched it, I didn't enjoy it.
Oh,
just
my dear God.
Just going to say it, just so it's out there. But like the nuances of it, as you you get to grips with it, actually is so beautiful. And I loved how you can kind of feel that element in the book, but almost softer and less aggressive than the film was.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the film was its own thing and was very much good at its own thing. And trying to emulate that, I don't know if that would translate very well to a page. I
can't quite see him sitting in a tea shop and sipping tea, but maybe a whiskey or something. But,
right, exactly.
The tea shop is a really beautiful, soft place. I love the quote about how you have a cup of tea with someone for the first time, and then the second time you become a family. What is it about tea that kind of resonate? Like, are you a strong lover of tea?
I am, and this is a very receptive audience, I'm assuming, to be able to speak on such subjects because. So back in 2016, I was the type of person that heated tea in the microwave, the tea water in the microwave. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I was one of those people. And then I went to the UK for a trip in 2016 for the first time. And every hotel room had an electric tea kettle. Every hotel room had an electric tea kettle. And as soon as I got home, I went and bought an electric tea kettle. And that is what I use now for my tea because I'm not a heathen any longer. And I have discovered recently the joy of PG Tips, which is I have sitting in my cabinet right now. And that's what I was drinking this morning, PG Tips black tea. So tea was always going to be part of this because aside from America is a very coffee centric culture. And tea, though, is one of the most ubiquitous drinks in the entire world. Almost every single culture on earth has their own history and ceremony surrounding tea. Tea is the second most drink consumed in the world after water and before beer. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to pair the idea of now they're yelling at me for drinking PG Tips.
The arguments are strong here.
You Brits and your
we will fight to the death about what tea we love. Like this is now a Yorkshire tea versus PG Tips battle. The event is over. It's just a tea fight. So the idea of tea being included in this novel was a simple one because of how old it is. Yeah.
Every buddy on earth will deal with death at one point or another. Death is a part of life. Death has always been there and it will always be there. Tea has been around for thousands of years, first starting allegedly, supposedly, and with some evidence in China, and then spreading throughout the entire rest of the world. And it fascinates me that there is all these rituals in culture, in different cultures for tea. And then there's the same thing with death. Death and the beliefs and how people respond to death and grief all over the world are different. So I decided to combine those two things because it felt like something that people from all walks of life could understand. People from all walks of life could understand the simple joy of walking into a cozy tea shop and having the person behind the counter be there ready to smile. And people from all walks of life know what it feels like to lose someone, because if you live long enough, you'll learn what loss is at some point in your life. So combining those two things seemed like a no-brainer just because I never really thought of a world where they could be apart.
That's beautiful. But I do have to ask a serious question, and that's how do you actually take your tea?
If I'm feeling dangerous, with a couple of sugars. But I will say, and you can give me all the crap y'all want over this. But you Brits who put milk in your tea, that is a problem that we're going to have to deal with at some point or another. So just keep that. Yep. So I was like, when I was in the UK, I was like, oh, well, the Brits have put the milk in their tea, so let me try this and see how it goes. That must be an acquired taste because that tasted like ass.
To be my mum drinks very strong black tea and leaves the tea bag in and it just festers. And I was forced to drink that as a child and I had a bad experience. So I now also don't drink tea. So I'll leave again because I don't like tea.
Oh my God.
I'm just like outing myself tonight in this conversation. It's every time.
What is this? What is this fake?
No, I work in publishing and everyone's like, tea. And I'm like, no, I don't drink tea. And they give me this dirty look like I'm like, have leprosy or something. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And like, it came up in my interview once. It was very strange. But whilst we are talking about tea, there is a great question from Claire who asked, what flavor or type of tea do you think you would be served?
So I did a panel a few weeks ago with V.E. Schwab, and she asked me that exact question. And she decided that I was a basic bitch, her words, because I am on team black tea and I will drink black tea. Yeah, black tea. There's a brand here in the States that does black tea with orange rind spices in it that I adore. Don't give me that look. Don't give me that look.
I haven't tried it.
I was going to pour a gallon of milk in my tea and call it even. That's all I got. I am a basic bitch when it comes to tea. However, I will say this. I tried every single tea I wrote about in this book because I figured the only way I can accurately write about it is if I drink it myself.
Yeah.
There is a specific type of tea in this book, I won't give it away, that one character drinks that is described as tasting like a lawn with an afternote, or tasting like grass with an afternote of honey. That comes from real experience because it tasted, I was told it was going to taste like grass.
Yeah.
And I was told you have to get through it to get the honey afternote. But man, did it taste like I had just gone outside to my front yard and just eaten like a strip of grass. It was. And
that's the worst. I had that with vodka once. It was a terrible experience. But
you had it with vodka?
Yeah, I bought some really cheap vodka and it just tastes like grass. Oh. It was really bad. But I drank it anyway because I bought it. So, waste not one lot. Let's talk about your writing process because you are a book machine. Like, you've this year alone, there's been 17,000 books out from you. And I know you say you're very studious, which I quite admire. And you sit there and you write it's like a proper job. But do you focus on one book at a time? Do you just spread yourself around? That's wrong.
I can't do that. So I have ADHD. I have. It's gotten better as I've gotten older, but I used to have pretty severe ADHD. By gotten better, I just want to say that not that I am cured or have actually got better. It's more manageable.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So if I tried to work on more than one thing at a time, that would be the end of my life because I would be so spread out all over the place. So when I'm writing, I can only write on one thing at a time. When I'm reading, I can only read one book at a time. And all y'all, you can let me know in the comments, but all y'all that can read more than one book at a time, I don't know how the crap you do that. I don't know. But when I'm say I'm in the middle of writing a book and I get edits come in from my publisher, I can't work on them at the same time. So typically what I'll do is I will put the book I'm writing on hold and solely focus on the editing. And it's just so I don't get distracted, and it's just so I'm immersed in this story, and so I am keeping track of the characters and their motivations and what scene is supposed to happen next. So I am a one book at a time person all across the board. And kudos to the authors who can write more than one thing at a time. But I honestly think you've probably sold your soul to Satan if you can do that. So. Which
Vishal probably has. I think she's 7 multiple times done that, and it baffles my mind. It's amazing, but I'm just even reading something, I'm like, I can't. I just stick with what I'm sticking with and power through.
Right, exactly.
So when you are writing, you're very do you write in a kind of linear fashion, or do you just, does the story come to you in the same respect?
No, so I am a plotter. Since we're talking about Under the Whispering Door, I'll use Under the Whispering Door, for example. I have thousands upon thousands of words written about this book that did not end up in this book. I have character descriptions, what their favorite breakfast is, what their biggest fears are, what movies they love, what music they listen to. I write all of this extra stuff before I even start writing the book, so I can feel like I'm there with the characters, like I know them intimately, so I know how they would react. And it's not meant to be for anyone but myself, and it's just there for me to help with the immersion. But when I write, especially when if there's a particular scene in a book, in a book that I'm writing that I know I can't wait to write, I don't skip ahead. I will wait till I get to that point, and it'll be
the build up, the slow burn. Yeah.
And it'll be like a little reward for me to get there to actually write that scene. So it's all very linear for me. I start at the beginning, and I do not jump ahead or skip around. I stay in one thing, but for me, I have to have an outline. I have to have notes. Like these are notes right now for a book that I'm working on.
I do that as well.
Oh, I do. I have
thousands of post-it notes, receipts, anything I can find to write on.
I have receipts. I have on my phone, I have this notepad function that I can just press a button and it starts recording me. So when I have ideas, and then it'll automatically email it to me, so I can have that. And then I also have actual outlines that I've written up that just show not necessarily step by step of how the book is going to go, but specific plot points that I want to hit, and I leave a little room in between them so I can do whatever I want to do in those. But
do you ever find that you rewrite stuff is planned out?
Say what?
I tend to write something down. I write like a plot outline and then rewrite it again on different pieces of paper. Do you do that, or am I just weird?
Yep. No, I do that too. Like this one, but then the problem is that sometimes I write notes that I have no idea what the hell I was talking about. Like I have this note right here that says creepy twins make friends out of what? I think that's supposed to be a joke, but I don't. Oh, make friends out of what? What are you going to make your? Oh, I'm funny. Sorry. I just got my own joke.
That's the most dad joke thing I've seen.
That's funny. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I have that, and there's times when I'm looking through my voice memos or my notes to myself, and I have no idea what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, my handwriting, if I go fast, especially, gets very scraggly, and I'm like, what does that even say? Line, dot, dot, line, I have no idea. It's like Morse code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it. Do you have any specific writing rituals, or do you just
Oh,
power on?
anytime I say this, I get made fun of, so I'm going to say it
ominous.
So some authors can go to coffee shops and write. Those are also people who are weird and crazy and should not be allowed out in public. There is also people who listen to music when they write. And then there's me, who listens to National Public Radio all day while I'm writing, which is news here. So basically think BBC News.
That's a choice.
You're right. And then when I'm editing, the only thing I can listen to when I'm editing anything is Christmas music. Doesn't matter what type of year it is. It could be July, and I will have
Christmas music.
Night music, Christmas music from the 40s and 50s, like Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra. Nothing like
Mariah Carey.
Oh my dear God, no! That song is an abomination, and she and Michael Bublé should feel bad for what they did to the world in Christmas music. So I'm going to be making enemies.
I love this. This is great.
But I have to. But the reason being is that my very first book, way back in 2011, that came out, I was doing edits for that around Christmas time. So of course everything was Christmas music. And that book came out and did unreasonably successful, and we still to this day I have no idea why.
Christmas music.
And so I just took that as a sign. So now every book I write or every book I edit, I have the Christmas music.
To be fair, I really like that. I think that's really quite something special. Although I do hate a lot of Christmas music, and I can't listen to it before Christmas Eve because it's just
oh my God.
much.
I'm
He's back in retail.
I'm so sorry.
I know.
Oh, that would explain it. I was about to ask what happened to you.
Retail. And they were just playing it on loop. You're like, I need to stop. Although I will listen to Kelly Clarkson's songs a little bit earlier because she's just, I love it. She's a sass queen. But like, no, yeah. Whenever I hear the opening lines all over Christmas, I like cringe up inside a little bit. Like, like the bell dings, and I'm like, it's too early. It's too early.
Anytime that Mariah Carey posts about it every year on like Twitter or Instagram, I just want to go and reply to her and be like, "Are you proud of what you've done? You should be ashamed of what you've done." But I don't do that because celebrities
are people too. She'll see this. And
I know she will. I know, and they she'll do that. I don't know her.
I don't get it. You could be me, and it'd be great. See, we're just creating waves here. Let's make it happen. We'll tweet it later. I'll be like, Mariah, here's some facts.
Yes, Mariah. I understand that you are a singer that some people enjoy.
But hey, like T, that song unites people. You know, you go into a bar, you hear the opening, and suddenly every gay is screaming it, and that's okay.
Yeah, I know. Them. And that makes me feel homophobic sometimes.
I can't say that out loud. Speaking of which, no, I'm just going to call you out now. I think growing up, there was, I think probably with both of us is quite true, and a lot of other people, there wasn't a lot of like queer fiction and queer representation, and it was kind of hard. We saw characters, the characters I didn't like necessarily miss it, but I didn't feel like it was reflective for sure for a while. Do you remember when you like found a book that you suddenly felt you were seen in?
Yeah, but it was not a very good book to be seen by. Well, let me put that away. Oh, no, God, I would never read that. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. To all the Mariah Carey fans that are watching, I just have something to say. Why? Anyways, going back to the book, right, as a child, it's a very good book. Don't get me wrong. It is a landmark of classic queer fiction, and I was even able to meet the author before she passed away a few years ago, and she actually read some of my books, and that is The Frontrunner by Patricia Nell Warren. If you are not aware of The Frontrunner, it was a book written by a straight woman that came out in the 70s and was immediately controversial, because it was a book published by a mainstream publishing house that was explicitly queer. The main character, and it was also perhaps a little taboo, but not for the queer aspect of it, because it is a professional running coach working at a college, falling in love with one of his runners, who's a student at this college, who is preparing to go to the Olympics. And it is explicit sex on page. It is a very romantic book and of the time, but then it ends tragically. It is not a romance. It is a love story. Romance is happily ever after, happily for now. Love stories can end sometimes in tragedies, and this was a tragedy, and it left such a horrible taste in my mouth. Don't get me wrong. I have since overcome that, and I've talked to Miss Warren about it before she passed. I even told her flat out, this was a defining book of my youth and my queer experience, and I wish it wasn't. I wish I could have read this as I got older, because it ends so horribly where, spoiler alert for a 40-year-old book, one of the main characters, one of the love interests, is murdered. And then the book ends. And it's supposed to be this damning indictment on the state of America at the time in the 70s and whatnot, but it just felt personal. It felt personal that I found a book with queer characters in it and they couldn't even be happy.
I think there's a lot of that around as well. A lot of books are either kind of a coming out journey, which is amazing, but there are so many of those at the moment, or a sadness or a death or a murder. And you're like, we don't all get murdered. It's okay. Like,
right.
We can be happy.
But even if we weren't murdered, we were the over-the-top offensive sidekick, or we were hurt, or we got sick, and it was all to teach the straight characters a very valuable lesson about the dangers of fill in the blank. Oh, look, these poor, sad homosexuals. Thank God we're straight. Yeah. So, it wasn't until I read, it came out in 2003, I think, the first book, which was, I was already 19, 20 years old by then. And that was Alex Sanchez's Rainbow High. There's a trilogy of books that he wrote. And this was the first book that I'd ever read that featured effeminate people being main characters, featured actual honest discussions about HIV and AIDS as one of the love interests for one of the main characters. In one of the subsequent books, it has HIV. And it was life-opening and it was illuminating, because here were queer people going to high school and going through normal shit that everybody goes through. And it was wonderful. And Alex Sanchez is just a wonderful author who has been around has many great books out and has been around for a while. But these were books that I wish I had read when I was 15 years old. I wish I'd been out when I was 15 years old.
So many books like that I wish that I'd had, because there's no language back then. There was no language, there was no words. You couldn't talk to people. You were like, you had to like self-actualize. And now here we are. Hate Mariah Carey as a result. Like, it's the journey that we've been on.
The gays have won
in so many ways.
Right.
And I think it's, especially at the moment, there's a really big response and kind of call for more marginalized voices to be heard of and to have that representation, which is so important. I'm just wondering, like, how you feel that we can do that more and keep pushing like the voices that haven't been heard yet. And like,
it should not be something. It should not be a unique situation when a book like Under the Whispering Door lands on the New York Times bestseller list.
No,
it should not be. It should not be. Holy crap! Here's a queer book that, like the book Less, that won the Pulitzer Prize a couple of years ago.
Did you like that book?
I did not.
Thank you. Okay, great.
But here's the thing. It was a queer-focused book with queer-centric characters that won the freaking Pulitzer Prize for fiction.
Then, like, everywhere you went, it was the people picking up and reading it and talking about it, and I was like, this is great.
Yeah, here's some better books for you to read with queer people.
Thank you. Okay, I thought it was just me for a while, but...
Yeah, but even if I didn't like it, as a novel, I could appreciate the importance of having something like that, because yes, it is much better than it was, but we still have such a long ways to go, man. We do. YA is at the forefront of diversity. YA, middle grade, even children's books are getting better than they were, but adult fiction is not. It is lagging behind, and even with books like The House in the Cerulean Sea hitting the bestseller list, people generally still try to classify that as a young adult book or a middle grade book, even though the main character is 40 years old and it's his narration. It's not a young adult book. It's meant for anybody who wants to read it.
Yes.
I think there's a difference. And the fact that books have to be, okay, I don't want to offend anyone with this. I legitimately don't want to offend anyone with this, but there are more than coming out stories. There are more than and look, don't get me wrong, there have been some fantastic books written about the coming out process. But I've said it before that it doesn't stop the moment you come out, because anybody you meet for the rest of your life is somebody you potentially have to come out to. And there's so much more to the queer experience, both good and bad, than coming out. So I want to move beyond the coming out narrative, because I don't want to say it's been done to death, but as I'm getting older, which isn't to say that people who are older can't come out. You know, you could be 30, 40, 50, all the way up till you're on your deathbed in your hundreds and come out. But as I'm getting older, I'm finding myself less and less enamored with the idea of coming out, and more with the idea of these characters just being queer.
Yeah.
It's not a plot point in the book. It is not, there's no big coming out moment. They are just queer, and here's the rest of the story.
I remember a couple of years ago reading Jack of Hearts and Other Parts. For the first time, I was there like, this is a sex positive book. There's sex is just forefront. It's an open conversation. It's not just holding hands or like a kiss here and there. It's actually full on like questions, and it was great for that. I was like, I'm so glad this book exists. I wanted to make everyone read it as quickly as I could, because it was, like you say, progressive, and just wasn't about an experience. It was just his journey, him living his best life.
Right, and that's what I did. I tried to do with my YAs in The Extraordinaries of Flashfire. Nick and Seth and his dad, they have very open and honest conversations about sex and the mechanics of sex and what goes into sex. And the reason that I did that was because there's still a certain segment of the population that thinks that queer youth should be sexless. And B, sex education, and I won't comment on any other country but the United States, queer sex ed is not taught in the United States. Sex education is straight. It is what happens between a man and a woman. So when I'm writing about sex and including actual sex in YA, it's not meant to titillate. It's meant to educate. It is meant to say, because if you can't get this stuff at school, are you going to look up porn? Because pornography is not real. I mean, pornography is pornography. It's not necessarily
real.
Right. So when you're writing about stuff that comes up, whether it be condom use or dental dams, protection, taking PrEP, all of that kind of stuff, we need to have those conversations. And YA, yet again, is at the forefront because, well, granted, it is meant for younger readers, but the puritanical mindset that we have to keep sex out of YA just blows my mind, because by the time I was 12 years old, I'd already seen pornography. Granted, I probably shouldn't have, but and this was before the advent of the internet, because apparently saying that out loud makes it sound like I grew up with the dinosaurs. But listen, kids, back in my day, we didn't get dial-up until I was 16 years old. So
I used to hear stories about people I know who used to go to the bushes and pick out a magazine. So we've all had experiences.
Or the bushes to pick out a partner.
That's a very different conversation we can't have on this chat. Love it. Anyway, let's move on from that.
Sex education.
It's important.
Talk about cruising.
It's completely important. I have to leave again. This is crazy. I think it's super important. Like, do you like how much of, I guess, your own experiences are you putting into a book? Like, when you're writing, how does your process work? Is there a separation, or do you find that you're channeling a lot of your own kind of like frustrations of the world into a book?
With House in the Cerulean Sea, I wrote that in 2017 when Trump had just come into presidency the year before, or had just been elected the year before, and everything felt dark. Everything felt bad. And so I wrote The House in the Cerulean Sea because I wanted to put some goodness out into the world. And I wanted to remind people that good, hopeful people still exist. Under the Whispering Door, I wrote because I was grieving. I was in the last, I don't even want to say the last stages of grief, but because I don't know that grief ever really goes away. The idea that we get closure somehow, I think is faulty, because grief never stops. It can lessen, it can
changes,
it can quiet, but 2 years, 3 years from now, that little hardened piece inside of you that used to be this verdant, alive grief that is now solidified and petrified, it can crack a little bit. And it may not feel as painful as it did before, but it still serves as a reminder. And there is some form of catharsis in grief. And that catharsis is what I was chasing when I was writing this book. I wanted to not answer questions of what came next, but give hope about the possibility. And not just to the readers reading it, but from myself, but for myself too, because I didn't understand why things had to be the way that they were. Why are good people taken far before they should be allowed to be? But then you have horrible people thriving all day, every day, and we get to see them on the news and the internet, and their faces blasted on Twitter, and their ridiculous words being spouted in sound bites. And I just didn't understand. So this book was me attempting to understand that while also dealing with some very serious grief that I had yet to process. How
was that process for you? Was it arduous? Did you not enjoy it as such? I guess enjoy is a strange word, but like, did it help you with your own processes?
It, to an extent. I worked on this book at first in fits and starts because I wasn't quite sure if I was ready to focus on the idea of grief. But once I got into it, once I found the rhythm and the cadence with the characters, I worked my way through it. It wasn't until after, probably not even not even right away, probably up until maybe this year, that I began to divorce myself from this book. And the reason that I do that with almost every book I put out. And the reason I do that is because when a book goes out into the public, it no longer belongs to me. It belongs to the world. Anyone who obtains the book by legal means, by buying it, by getting it from a library, however, they have the right to have any opinion on my book they want. It is not my book anymore. It is your book. And if you got it, then you can say whatever you want about it. Typically, I'm totally fine with that because that's the reader's right. And I don't really read reviews anyways, unless somebody on Instagram or Twitter tags me in a review. That obviously means they want me to see it. So I'll give it a look. With this book, though, it was so personal to me that I've had to step away from that completely. And the reason being is because I don't know that I could be that divorced as much as I think I am, because I think that if somebody tweeted at me and said, this is the worst book I've ever read, I'd be like, oh, well, you're stupid and shut your face. But this book means a lot to me. And I know it can mean a lot to different people, but I know that there's going to be some people out there who just won't understand. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. I just have to separate myself from them.
Completely. Well, I think, especially we can see it from the chat box here, people have really resonated with it, and it's touching and helping a lot of people. So thank you for that, because it's important. But it was also it was funny in parts. It was fun to read it. There were beautiful moments and sad moments and like beautiful connections, and like it wasn't just one thing. It was everything that kind of took a little roller coaster.
Well, that's what life is. Life is peaks and valleys, ups and downs. It's happiness, it's joy, and it is utter devastation. And it can all sometimes happen within the same breath. And so it's important. This book isn't just about grief. This book, for being a book about a dead man, this book is about living and living for all you're worth, and asking yourself the very profound question of, even though you don't know how much time you have left, what will you do with the time you do have left?
Yeah. Somebody has asked if you have left any Easter eggs in this book.
I have. There are Easter eggs for a certain island in a certain color of blue ocean. And there are Easter eggs from there's a how to be a normal person Easter egg that I don't think anybody has found yet. Everybody has located at least as far as I can tell, people have located the Green Creek Easter eggs that are in this book. But there is, I think that we kept in the Extraordinaries Easter egg that I put in here too. But I love doing Easter eggs in books. I love doing that, not just for anything that's meant to be profound. It's just for shits and giggles. It's fun. It's just fun to look at those kinds of things, and for readers of my books to get a little nod so they can be like, oh yeah, that's from this book. And just, it's not meant to be anything important. It's just meant to be something I do for fun.
That's half the joy of reading a book, when you find little bits and you feel connected to something different in a different way, and even to other people. Like Stephen King does Easter eggs in his books all the time. Some are very blatant and probably should be a bit more subtle, Mr. King, if I can tell you how to write. Dishing out advice today. This is great.
Right. But you know what? Tangent. Sorry, real quick.
No,
Stephen King is in his 70s. He's still releasing 1 to 2 books a year. May we all be that prolific when we get to be his age, because good freaking Lord, he is, long live the King, man, because when he passes and goes to his own tea shop or whatever version he was, that is going to be a sad day for me, because I have read everything that man has written multiple times, and I will continue to do so. And one day I will meet him, and I will not cry on him like I did Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker.
Did you? Oh.
Yeah. I was meeting him at a convention, and I consider myself a very big Star Wars fanatic, and I was like totally ready to go meet Luke Skywalker, and then I got up to the front of the line and it was my turn, and I probably burst into tears, and I kind of threw myself at him like, I love you, Luke Skywalker, right? And like sobbing, And
we used to get girls like you at book events, and I'd be like, they were like getting really
Right,
anxious
yeah,
to be their
so-
like hero, and I'm like, just say something smart and funny and interesting, go, and just push them forward. And you're like,
That's what I was gonna. I had this
Yeah.
whole thing planned out where I was
Yeah.
gonna tell him about a scene in Empire Strikes Back that was my favorite, and because of him. But instead, I just kind of snotted all over his shirt, and he was very kind about it.
I mean, it's the memory he'll take with him, you know, like that's a unique. I'm a bit sure happens quite a lot actually. I met Carrie just before, but like it was a really weird meeting with Carrie Fisher because she was taking her dog to the toilet. So we were kind of like we met in a corridor.
Oh, I
and
thought you were
like,
talking about Mariah Carey for a second, and I was gonna be like, "Oh my God, Steven, for real?"
Yeah, I'm just gonna
For
call her
real?
like,
Yeah.
she's my aunt.
She's right here. No, Carrie Fisher. though.
Yeah, I met Carrie Fisher in a corridor, and she was taking her dog to the toilet. So we couldn't have a conversation or anything. But it was just this weird moment that I'll never forget now, that I will just keep with me, because it was just a beautiful but strange event, and I was dressed as an elf, so it was a weird thing around. But
She was a delightful human being.
she was great, isn't it? And she was like, even like she took her dog to the pee, like as an actual. It was a very strange moment. But she was lovely, literally as in the toilet, in the bowl. Yeah, it was very strange, but she was lovely to everyone, and it was just such a beautiful kind of strange memory moment. Is there anybody else that you would like fangirl over if you met?
Oscar Isaac, but for very different reasons. Because I would say, hello. Oh no, what do you mean I'm not wearing pants? I meant
Where
to
did
put
my
on
clothes
pants
go?
when I came here. Yes. Oh. As I'm attempting to peel a banana right in front of him. Yeah, that's. There's a reason I don't go.
That's a visual image now that we've all got.
Yeah, I know. I'd be like, I got your Star Wars right here, Mr. Isaac.
This is the debate, and I love it.
Yeah.
Literally lost all sense of understanding of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I love it. That's great. To be fair, I did nearly throw up on who was it? Brian Cranston once. That was not a good day for me. I had to serve him breakfast, but I was really ill, and I was like, "Here's your breakfast," and I had to walk away and be like,
I would probably cry on him too, because I've seen Breaking Bad way too many times. Well, actually, I'm white, so of course I've probably seen Breaking Bad way too many times. It's about meth. That's what my people do.
"We can play some right now if you want, like put it on the TV." Yeah, that was a weird day as well. But I think like the fact that we have those people, like again, it's about sharing connections and sharing understandings. And I think a lot of book people have the same thing. Like people get so excited to meet people. Like you have a fan club, and a podcast. Like you have a named fan club. This is amazing. You're basically like Mark Hamill to a lot of people.
Yeah, well, and you know what? I am absurdly grateful for that, because if you think about it, I'm a goddamn lucky son of a bitch. I am. I'm very, very lucky to be able to do what I do, and to have the readership that I do, and to be able to tell the stories that I want to tell. And not only that, this is my full-time job. How many people get to really say that they do what they love and actually mean it 100%? Yes, there are days that I want to pull my freaking hair out, and days that I never want to look at another blinking cursor on my Word doc again. But then the next day comes and I'm reminded of just how much power words have. I can get an email from a woman who lost her aunt, the woman who raised her, and then she lost her aunt due to COVID, and then she read The Whispering Door. She wasn't sure she was going to be able to read it, but then she read it all the way through, and she felt better after that. Not healed, because that's not going to be something possible. But here's the thing. Those moments like that, make every bullshit thing I've ever had to go through worth it. Because if you can help one person find some peace, then what can you ask for, man?
That's beautiful. You can put that on your CV. Author, helper, Mariah Carey hater. Just a list of things that you are.
I'll put that at the top.
Those were my business cards. Like, get the tote bag out.
Just not even apropos of anything. I'll just randomly throw in Mariah Carey sucks. So
put it on a t-shirt. Wear it.
Right.
Note to self: send him t-shirts saying that. There's someone here. There's no one here. Do I look that way? let's talk. We've got a couple of time for a couple more questions. Let's talk about things that aren't you for once. Let's not talk about you anymore. Do you have any book recommendations, especially featuring ace characters?
Okay, so I do have a couple of book recommendations, and I'll go to the character one. So a couple weeks ago, on September 28th, Tor released Rika Aoki's Light from Uncommon Stars. My God, this book is Jesus. It is so good. It is one of the few times ever in my life that I have felt jealous reading another author's words. But here's the thing. Nobody like Rika could have written, nobody but her could have written this book. It is a queer science fiction fantasy amalgamation that is just, it has to be read to be believed. And I am so thrilled for her and the fact that I get to exist at the same time as someone of her talent. Rika Aoki's Light from Uncommon Stars. Next month, actually next week, I think, at least in the US, I'll be hosting her launch event. Freya Marsk has a Marvelous Light coming out.
Yeah.
And it is, are they not seeing me? They say they can't see me.
No, I mean, I can see you.
Okay, you can see me.
So we're good. We can just crack on. I mean, it is recorded, so we can always come back to it, but it should be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Marvelous Light, it is funny, it is sexy, and it has a very unique magic system that I have never really seen done before. And it just the cradling, because when we were kids, you used to do the thing with the strings where you'd fold it and you'd.
What do you mean as a kid? I did it like a couple of weeks ago.
Oh.
I got bored. It was like,
oh, aren't you special? But it takes that, something I never would have thought of, and takes that and puts it into the magic. And I was shocked by it. It was so good. Yeah. So that comes out. That's called The Marvelous Light by Freya Marsk.
It's out in November here.
Yeah. So there are some wonderful, but ace books. There is Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn. I believed her last name is pronounced. It's spelled Kann, and it is a contemporary YA novel that has a Black biromantic asexual lead, and there's no qualifications made for it. That's just who she is, and it is a wonderful book. There is Alice Oseman has Radio Silence. Everybody probably knows her from her graphic novels, but she has a asexual character in that book. Is there any other that I could think of? I think, doesn't Shanann Maguire have, I think that her book, like Every Heart a Doorway, I think that is asexual. But breaking news, well, not really breaking, but my next book that comes out, let me rephrase that. You started with House in the Cerulean Sea, and then it went to Under the Whispering Door. So the next book, the third book in this unofficial kindness trilogy, unofficial because they're not related in any way, shape, or form, universe-wise, but I have a book that I wrote that'll be coming from Tor that is a queer retelling of Carlo Collodi's Pinocchio, featuring the lead character is a person with autism who is also asexual. And he is an inventor named Vic, who his best friends are a nursing machine and a sentient Roomba vacuum named Rambo, who has the heart and soul of a golden retriever. And they find a shut down, partially destroyed android in a scrap pile and decide to fix them back together. And what comes next is a huge adventure that I pulled from Collodi's Pinocchio. I put a few nods of Disney's adaptation of Pinocchio, but House in the Cerulean Sea all took place on one island. Under the Whispering Door goes even smaller and takes place mostly in one tea shop. This last book in this that rounds out this trilogy blows all of that up. It is a huge adventure. It is a quest novel. It is stretches the limits of my imagination, and I am so excited for people to read that.
So away, like, and it's sadly not coming out for like a year, not a bit longer.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while, but you know what? This is what I love about being an author. One of the things I love is releasing a book, and then the very same day, people reading it all the way from front to back, and then tweeting at me, "When's your next book coming out?" Like, Jesus Christ!
Just a massive tease, basically.
Yeah, for real. But it's a good thing I am a machine.
Yes.
I have plenty of books coming out.
I bet you do. Thing we're sadly going to have to wrap up, which is annoying.
Holy crap! It's already
It's
already been
literally
an hour.
I can stay here for hours just talking about everything. This has been one
For
of the
real.
best.
We can start our anti-Mariah Carey fan club and see what happens.
We'll have a podcast and YouTube series. It'll be
Oh,
great.
God, that'd
I
be
can't
amazing.
wait.
Okay.
I'm going to end with my favorite question.
Okay.
What is your favorite word?
Fuck. Sorry.
We are live. You can swear, apparently. This is not Channel 4.
Yeah, that is my favorite word. So fun story. The House in the Cerulean Sea, when I was in edit, my editor came to me and said, "No, Jamie, you're not fired. I'll go to bat for you. I'm sorry.
I'll take the fall. It's okay."
Yeah, we'll blame it on Mariah Carey. So House in the Cerulean Sea, when that was in edits, my editor, Allie, came to me and said, "Hey, you have 2 instances of the F word in here. What if we just took those 2 out?"
No.
Because that'll open that. I don't know, but that'll open a readership because parents go to bookstores, they go to librarians, and they say, "Is there any sex in this? Is there any violence? Is there any language?" And if they hear yes, they maybe want to not read that book. So she said, if you took just those 2 words out, and it was Linus, or it was Zoe saying it once, the Zoe Chapelwhite, and Lucy, of all people, saying it once, but he's the Antichrist, so he's allowed to say the F word. But if you take those 2 out, anybody could read this book. You could have kids reading this book. And me, at that point in my life, going, me, a children's author? Please. I write about penises in my book, so do that. Right. So it was interesting to do that. And then all of a sudden, like somebody just put in there, Lois Young. I remember the word bitch. And I was actually in the very last Harry Potter book where Molly Weasley says, "Not my daughter." And I remember how scandalized everyone was when that came out. Be like, "Oh my God, this book is about teenagers and there's a curse word?" Well,
I was there when they filmed that. I was there when they filmed that scene. It was just like the best thing ever. Having her just there shouting it out, and I'm like, again, I'm like, I can't take this.
Oh, okay. Lois saying there was a reference to dogs, but it was an insult directed at Harry by his relatives. But but in the very last book, Molly Weasley says that big line in the middle of
and that is meant intended as it is. Like, that is
right. And then I remember how many people were clutching their pearls when that came out, and it was it's just. But yes, so I like the F word. I like cussing it. I make no apologies for that, except for the times when I have to apologize
it's not
for
really a
getting
swear word
Jamie
anymore.
fired.
It's just a comma at this point. It's an exclamation more than a swear word. It's just a
right.
common
Exactly.
use.
Exactly.
I mutter it like 50 times a day. It's fine. Don't worry. Put it in the next book. Put it in the next book in strange, like hidden ways.
Right.
As a little Easter egg. We'll find it.
But what was so funny? Oh, it's going to be bad too. But what's so funny is after The House in the Cerulean Sea came out, some of my more amorous readers were like, "Well, this book didn't have any relations in it, so I wrote this 30,000 word fan fiction that just is about them just."
My email address is
and I had to say thank you, but no thank you. A, I don't read fan fiction based on my work because I want to keep it separate. But B, the idea of Linus and Arthur just be like bow chicka wow wow, just
that's the
feels weird. If even in Under the Whispering Door, there is a single line that references a couple having sex. That even then I was kind of like, but you know what? I figure if parents are reading this book with their kids, they'll have bigger things to focus on than reading about these 2 characters taking off their clothes.
You can just write a sex book separately. We'll read that and it's fine. That's what we'll do.
That's what we'll do. Yeah.
And on that note,
Jamie, you're not going to be fired. You're not. I promise. If you are, I can write you a letter of recommendation.
we'll start a protest. I love it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. On my Mariah Carey stationery.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Yes,
so much.
thank you for playing along. This has been a delightful event. And hey, everybody in the UK that's watching this, you're welcome for having this moment with Stephen. No, but everybody, please give a round of applause to Stephen for playing along with me and not hanging up when I started talking.
I love it. It's been amazing. Thank you for joining us. Happy Publication Day again.
Thank you.
If you haven't got a copy, please do go and buy it, and then buy all the beautiful editions because there are so many.
Let me just say one last thing about this book. This book is whatever you want it to be. This book can be just a story, or this book can be a window that you can kind of just peek through if you're not ready to go in full bore, or it can be a door that you can open up and invite yourself in and see how you feel about the idea of death and mortality, and especially in the times that we're living in. I don't know that over the past almost 2 years now that we've given ourselves time to grieve over the people that we've lost, the time that we've lost, the changes in our way of life. And I think that when we do hit that moment, where it's going to hit, and it's going to hit hard. But with Under the Whispering Door, I just want to remind you that sometimes it's okay not to be okay. That as long as you don't let that become everything that you know, it's okay to feel down sometimes. It's okay to be sad or angry or upset at the unfairness of everything. But once you get past that feeling, put it to good work. Put it to change. Become the better version of yourself. Not the best, because I don't know. I don't even know necessarily what it means to be a good person. But so long as you try to be a little bit better than you were the day before, you'll be okay. Will you succeed every day? No. But as long as you keep trying, you'll be okay.
Mic drop. I can't top that, so we're gonna round it up the end. Book drop in this case.
Hi, puppies.
Oh, your puppies! Where?
Yeah, here. I'll show you my puppies. You see? I do puppies. Yes, that's Hendrix.
Amazing.
But thank you for doing this. Thank you for hosting this. This was wonderful thing. This is absolutely wonderful.
The pleasure is all mine.
And thank you to Jamie for putting this together, and thank you for Tor UK and Black Crow and all of it for just supporting this book and getting it out to the world. I'm very, very happy that y'all get to get this book finally.
Yes, go read it, go tweet about it, tell your friends, buy copies for everyone, and enjoy.